So back in 2020, the original author and the original illustrator of the Death Note manga decided to make a special one-shot 14 years after the conclusion of the original Death Note run. And by some miracle, the Donald Trump managed to end up in it as one of its key players. For the most part, the manga takes place 9 years after the ending of the original Death Note manga, and it follows a brand new character called Minoru Tanaka who gets Death Note by Ryuk. And now, while a Death Note sequel with Donald Trump in it might sound crazy, I promise you what comes next is the most insane display of intelligence and genius that I have ever read. So we first open up the one-shot in 2013, 3 years after the ending of the original Death Note, where another Shinigami comes to Ryuk saying he failed to create another Kira. And the ever-loving fan of Apple, Ryuk, decides to take matters into his own hands because he just misses the Apple products so much. So he sets out on a journey to find another genius human that can replace Kira. Then we cut back to 2019, where Ryuk gives the notebook to Minoru Tanaka, where he actually regains the memories of his Death Note, which only happens if you first owned it. We then flash back to 2017, where we see Minoru as a middle schooler, and not only that, he has the highest IQ score of any middle schooler in Japan, clocking in at a whopping 142. But when you see his test results, you see he's really lazy, and as he's holding his English exam that he failed miserably, Ryuk throws his Death Note on his head. Now Minoru basically has the exact same reaction Light did upon first meeting Ryuk. But then really quickly they go to Minoru's home, where Minoru comes up with a plan and tells Ryuk to come back in 2 years, and he relinquishes the Death Note. That means up until 2019, Minoru didn't even remember his plan. Now honestly, this part of his plan, where he sent Ryuk away for 2 years, I don't quite understand. Thinking back, I think it's because he needed to be, I think, at least 16 to open up a savings account in a bank. But yeah, now, in 2019, we finally get to see the absolute genius that Minoru is. He first asks Ryuk how far away he can be from his host, and Ryuk gives an arbitrary answer of like, let's say 14 kilometers. It's not important. So he tells Ryuk to go to Sakura TV, a TV station that's 11 kilometers away from his home, and to hold up a piece of paper that says that the Death Note is up for auction, and if you want to bid, use a hashtag on Twitter and put your amounts in it. The bidding starts pretty much right away, and after the previous investigators that work on Akira case recognize Ryuk, they basically start following these broadcasts. And Matsuda, the ever-living idiot that he is, he goes to live TV and tells everybody not to bid on this, which just makes this seem ever so more legit. And while all of this is going on, Nier is in the background, now acting as the new L, trying to maybe figure out some kind of plan to catch Akira. But because this plan is so foolproof, until the end of the manga, L is just in the background twiddling with his toys. But now the bidding continues, and at some point bidding becomes so high that pretty much only nations themselves can bid against each other. And in the end, there are two nations that are pretty much left in the running, and that is China and India. Now they start bidding for it and saying we will give X amount of money, Y amount of money, and we will do X reason and we will use it for world peace, etc. But Minoru, being a Chet, he just sends another message saying, hey, I don't care what you will use it for, put only money in your bids. And after a lot more bidding that's now on national TVs and not on Twitter, the Death Note gets sold to United States of America for 10 trillion American dollars, or 1 quadrillion Japanese yen. Now, that's a lot of money, and pretty much L and his entire team say that they only have one other chance of catching Kira, and that's while he's giving away the notebook and receiving the money. But, like L says, Minoru thought even about this. The way he wants the United States government to pay is to give all 1 quadrillion yen to a specific bank, and then that bank has to give exact same amount to every person who has an open savings account in them. So basically that means 100,000 people got 1 billion yen. Basically untraceable. Basically perfect. And to make matters even better, he specifies give it to everybody age 60 and under. It's literally perfect! Now you might be wondering, where does Donald Trump come in all of this? Well, in 2020, while this one shot was being written and released, Donald Trump was still the acting president of the United States. So of course, while the bidding is going on, Donald Trump is there right on the page, staring back at you. Now honestly, this might have been a bit clickbaity because this could have been literally anybody. This could have been Obama or a random drawn US president. It could have been Bill Gates and the story wouldn't change. But hey, because of the circumstances, Donald Trump did end up in the Death Note manga. But what happens? Well, he does have one more appearance where Shinigami King summons Ryuk and tells him that he is appalled that somebody managed to sell the Death Note in the human world. So he has a new rule in the Death Note, and that is whoever tries to sell or buy the Death Note will die. The seller dies when he gets the money, and the buyer dies when he gets the notebook. And Ryuk tells that to Donald Trump, who decides not to accept the Death Note, because if he would have accepted the Death Note, Donald Trump would die, and then the next president or the next highest ranking person in the United States or the government itself would have the Death Note. But the president decides to actually not take the Death Note and just say that he got the Death Note and has its power, but refuses to use it ever, making him look like a saint. And with that, Ryuk leaves, and while he's leaving, he actually ponders about what Minoru told him, and the last thing Minoru told to Ryuk was, "Get away from me, never appear before me again," so he doesn't get caught with a Shinigami next to him. But because of that, Minoru does not know about the new rule added, so a month later, after all the chaos around the bag subsides, when he goes to retrieve his money, he actually dies because he received payment for the Death Note, therefore making him the seller. So although his plan was perfect, he could have not beaten the rules of a Shinigami god. So yeah, this story is honestly insane. When you see in the final panel that Minoru's name is next to Light Yagami's in Ryuk's personal Death Note, you believe it, because honestly this guy managed to use and basically turn the world on its end by not even using the Death Note, but just by selling it, by using the name of it. And honestly, thinking back at it, this was a foolproof plan. If the Shinigami King didn't come up in the end, or if Minoru told Ryuk to come back, he might have lived and, you know, honestly gotten away with it. And he didn't only get huge, like 1 billion yen is around $10 million. So that's like money you can live on for the rest of your life, basically, especially with some good investments. And he did that not only for himself, but for 100,000 other people. Now, honestly, thinking on it, that might have enabled some serial killers to like install death basements in their, well, death dungeons in their basements. But even still, this just proved that Minoru is one of the smartest people with some of the most genius plans I have ever seen. Because honestly, if you can find a fault with this plan, write it in the description down below, because I honestly personally, like, set in the context where people know and where Nier and his team told the president or the government of USA that yeah, Death Note is real, if in that circumstances this plan was legitimately perfect. So yeah, if you can find any defaults with this plan, leave it in the comments down below, or if you liked the video, leave a like or just a comment that you enjoyed the video. And yeah, thank you for watching.